Welcome back, gang. It's Deltia from Deltiasgaming.com. Here to preview the two new dungeons coming to the Elder Scrolls Online on March 14th for PC and March 29th on consoles. These two new dungeons will be a part of the Ascending Tides DLC, and each are vastly different in appearance and mechanics. This will be a preview and impression video of the dungeons. I will show you some of the boss fights, so if you don't want any spoilers, turn away now. This will not include a detailed walkthrough, which I will include and have a separate video on each, including hard modes later. You'll want to watch this video for a summary of the dungeon, gear, preview of some of the basic mechanics to come, and see if you want to run these. Keep in mind, all this is subject to change as it is playing on a testing environment, but will likely get some tuning as the hard modes might be a little bit overtuned in their current iteration. Also, if you like this type of video, leave me a comment on your favorite dungeon and why, and always consider checking me out on twitch.tv/deltiasgaming, where I play these live and most importantly interact with you, the community. Buckle up, these are some awesome dungeons. So dungeon basics, if you're new to this, don't understand how it works in the Elder Scrolls Online. These dungeons are previous to similar dungeons and feature multiple tiers of difficulty, along with limiting group size to a max of 4. Normal equals very forgiving and the average player can complete it. Veteran can be challenging for some, while others should not have much of a problem. Our group specifically was able to complete Veteran within an hour easily, though we're all very experienced and well geared. Hard mode is insanely hard on the public test server, and again, it might get nerfed because it might be just too hard for most folks to clear. These dungeons all have optimal secret bosses that you can complete and skip, and in Veteran mode, each has a hard mode pedestal that allows you to complete all 3 of the bosses at hard mode. I would suggest completing the side secret bosses because it boosts your max stats and will allow you to do more damage and stay alive. So if you're struggling doing Veteran it's your first time, get the side bosses if you can. Check my guide out later for details. The first dungeon up is Shipwright's Regret, found in Eastern Rivenspire, and this is my favorite of the 2 dungeons because of its gloomy, unique nature of the dungeon, but also some incredible gear sets to obtain. The synopsis of this dungeon is the following. When you first walk into the dungeon, what's striking is the green glow, the haunted house feel, the March of Sacrifice meets a scary Halloween movie. You'll progress on winding roads with multiple off-beaten paths and interesting critters and areas to explore. There's gloomy green color everywhere, but the most important visual feature of the dungeon was the lighthouse, which you can see throughout the entirety of the dungeon. You'll get closer and closer to this lighthouse as it guides you home like a boat at sea, with the climactic epic boss fight conclusion reminiscent of Aquaman. More on that later. While exploring these random nooks and crannies, you'll find a little trap door leading to a massive underground cavern with the secret boss. The secret bosses are much easier to defeat than normal bosses and have limited mechanics and HP. Just note, if you reach a boss with a hard mode banner pedestal and you haven't encountered a secret boss, you've gone too far. Usually there's a secret boss before you get to the main boss, so you'll have to double back because each one has their own secret before progressing. The first boss difficulty comes from having to bash multiple critters, which the tank cannot always reach. And there's a lot of stuff going on the ground. It's firing off all over, and you have a tether specifically tethered to every single person. It reduces their damage done. Oh, did I mention a stun mechanic? And wait till you get to the hard mode. This is just on Veteran. What I love about this specific boss and its encounter is it requires a lot of mobility, and it requires coordination, timing, and interrupts and killing adds. It's not a stationary set and forget fight. Well, at least with our DPS. Moving on to the next part of the dungeon, that's my second boss, is my favorite looking, and you hippie Spriggan lovers out there will love this one. You can expect on Veteran mode the use of high mobility because there's bad crap on the ground everywhere, and this boss becomes immune to damage during certain phases, and you have to figure out why and how to deactivate it. What impresses me on this fight is the colors and the mobility required, e.g. the complete opposite of what I normally experience in most trials. Parse for 2 minutes, move, rinse, and repeat. This is why I typically play max range based characters like my Magic Sork and John and a Magic Nightblade. We did real good to avoid most of the mechanics, and with a crushing shock range interrupt and John's off healing, we're doing really good. Now, as soon as you walk out, we all stopped, and for a long session second, took a breath, and looked at the style and the scope of the dungeon, and you notice the lighthouse and the colors clear in the distance. It's an epic feeling. Sense of conclusion continues to present itself from step 1 until the last building. And this right here really ramps up, and I love the design and makes the first time amazing. The final boss appears, and it's like Aquaman, jumping up from the water as the boat sails away and lands, and you can see that lighthouse just beaming light. Sorry, my friend thought this looked like the T-9000 from the Terminator, but she might have watched too many Terminator movies. Either way, an impressive entrance. This boss fight focuses on heavy ad mechanics, mobility, and interrupts, so it's great using crushing shock for control. Like similar bosses, you're going to get a hulking baddie charging a random, adding more chaos to the mix. It's a great mix of combat, and why I much prefer dungeons to trials. You need mobility, self-heals, burst window. And the more I think about it, it's kind of like PvP. You need to have your head on a swivel and instinctively react, and not only worry about your role, but protecting everybody else, regardless of what you're playing. I'm sure after clearing repeatedly, it'll be slow and it'll be easy, but this is one, I think, along with Dread Cellar, that even on veteran, you have to have your head on a swivel, and you can't sleepwalk through this. Here's a quick list of the gear sets on the PTS, but just realize these are subject to change. You're going to have a light set Storm Cursed Revenge. This is going to do shock damage and an AoE, and it's going to scale off of your weapon and spell damage. Next setup is going to be medium Spriggan's Vigor. This looks like a sustain and max stamina set with the 5-piece. And then the last 5-piece we have is Turning Tide Heavy. This most likely will be meta because you're going to be able to proc major vulnerability and keep a very high uptime on it. In fact, Tank Club, our tank, TC Lee, was using it, and I could notice the increased damage and uptime was really high. And then lastly, we have the Monster Helm. I can't even pronounce it. And maybe soon to be meta tank PvE and PvP along with it, Monster Helm. It acts like a reverse Jorvals, extending debuffs and dots by the amount of ultimate use. Use 500, those dots and debuffs are going to ramp up for a very long time. Think Magic DK here and PvP. It's nasty. That's dungeon number 1. Let's go to the cheerier side of things, and that's Coral Aerie Dungeon in Somerset. In case you skipped the dungeon mechanics I quickly went over, normal, very easy for the average person. Veteran can be challenging or easy, while hard mode is absolutely insane. Each one of these and veteran mode is going to have a secret boss before a main boss, so you double back if you did not find it. Completing it's going to grant you a special reward like max stats or weapon damage and so forth. So if you struggle with veteran, I'd highly recommend taking the time to get the secret bosses done, even on hard modes. When I start walking in here, what strikes me on this dungeon, it's vastly different color palette. It really feels like Somerset from the outside, and a little like Artanium when you go on the lovely journey with the Sigic Skull guy screaming and telling you to collect Rift. What was his name? Oh well, moving on. This dungeon also has paths, but a little more obvious off the beaten paths where you can just sense a secret boss area, specifically checking your map or mini map. Wish that was in the game. The secret boss entrants are really tricky to find. You have to interact with a specific wall, and it's really difficult your very first time locating it. The secret bosses foreshadow the end, final, or fourth secret boss. Cloud Rest, anyone? It's a very simple fight, simple mechanics, and shouldn't be difficult for the average player, but try to get this so you can get the buff. Once that's complete, you'll get to the first boss, and this one is vastly different than anything you've experienced previously. You open a massive cavern and wonder to yourself, WTH, what's gonna ensue here with Veladress's sister staring down at me? Well, one way to find out, DPS pull. After a few bits into the fight, we get introduced to the first mechanic, and the entire room fills with water, allowing you to use a synergy to pop up to an island. The trick, you want everyone to go to the same islands, specifically so the tank can tank it without getting one shot. This was wild the first time we experienced it. It was a really cool, impressive new mechanic we were thrown at. Well, minus the grappling hooks, because we don't like that mechanic. This really caught us off guard. Cool to see. Then you start traveling through narrow halls with overgrown brush, feeling like the place has been left desolate for quite a while. It's a nice mix to break up the standard cavern dwelling with some new features and structure. Then you come into a massive wide open area that is breathtaking, with a stalking griffin that foreshadows the final boss to come. And then the last boss with a lot of mechanics, death lines, knockbacks into water, and I say mobility, which I already love, yes. Black holes dropping on players' position, and I love the purple blue hue, and the visuals along with the pain and suffering are amazing. The area feels like nature's arena, and it's very circular with a little bit of plants. Love it. And then after you complete that, there's a secret boss, a fourth one, which is very difficult, but I don't want to spoil it until we get to the hard mode guides. Here's a list of the gear sets, and like previous dungeons, one light, medium, heavy with the monster helm. First one up is the light, and this is an overhealing set, so if someone's at 100% and you heal them, it's going to do some shock damage. It does have a decent size 7-meter AoE, but seems kind of like an odd set for a healer to run. Griffin's Reprisal. This one does crit damage, and you can activate a synergy. You can, or someone else can, to spam a damage bleed. The tooltip was utterly insane on this one when we tested it in the PTS, and it seems like it's going to replace Unleashed Terror in PvP, but more testing needed. Glacial Guarding. Essentially what this does is it procs a tether after successfully blocking and gives you increased chance to apply status effects. We didn't find it that useful, but again, you might just want to use a charge trait. Then the Monster Helm is a bit deceptive in what it does, but really the main purpose is it's going to grow in AoE and allow the allies inside to reduce their magic and stamina costs. So it's something you may use if you're running resource sustain, maybe on a tank or a healer in PvE, I imagine. Well, gang, I hope I gave you enough to have you interested in these new dungeons, gears, and clear. You can expect momentums and other collectibles. Remember, account-wide achievements will be a thing going forward in Update 33. Leave me a comment and make sure to hit that like, subscribe, because it really does help my channel grow, along with consider watching me on twitch.tv/Deltiasgaming, where I play these builds live, but most importantly, I can interact with you, the community. Thanks for watching.